On a snowy day, Lily stood behind the bakery counter, smiling as she felt the chill seeping through the window pane. Snowy days always brought a magical charm to the bakery. Children played outside, building snowmen under the soft glow of the streetlights, while she quietly sipped her tea, wrapped in peace. Though she loved the rain, snow held its own special magic, gentle and dreamy. After finishing the last sip of her tea, Lily brought her cup to the sink, rinsed it carefully, and set it on the bamboo rack to dry. Then she stepped into her room to change. Every year during the cookie party, Lily wore a charming sweater she'd received as a Christmas gift many years ago. It featured a cheerful snowman knitted from playful little squares, with tall pine trees in the background. The snowman's silly grin always made her laugh, and her customers seemed to love it just as much. Once ready, she began her day, bringing warmth to the cold winter morning. On a gentle, snowy day, Lily stood behind the counter of her bakery, smiling as she felt the window pane gradually grow cold. Snow always brought a special kind of magic to the bakery, something Lily deeply cherished. From where she stood, she could see the street blanketed in white, where children laughed, ran around, and built snowmen beneath the glow of the street lamps. The scene warmed her heart. Though she also loved rainy days with their own soft charm, snow held a unique enchantment, something that made life feel more poetic. As she sipped the final drop of her tea, Lily let herself melt into the peace and dreaminess of the winter day. In moments like these, everything seemed to slow down. It was warmth within the cold, and a beauty so still and quiet, it took her breath away. On a quiet winter morning, Lily stood behind the counter of her bakery, smiling as the window pane turned icy cold to the touch. Snow was falling gently outside, making everything feel magical. Children ran and laughed in the street, building snowmen beneath the soft glow of street lamps. She loved rainy days too, but snow always brought a special kind of beauty, like a spell cast over her little bakery. After sipping the last of her tea, she washed her cup, set it on the bamboo rack, and headed to her room to get dressed. As always on Cookie Party Day, Lily wore her favorite sweater, a Christmas gift from years ago, decorated with a goofy snowman that never failed to make her and her customers smile. Ready for the day, she stepped into the hallway, wrapped in a warm coat, scarf, hat, and gloves. In her hand, she held her cheerful green umbrella dotted with yellow spots and topped with a duck-shaped handle, a small detail that always lifted her spirits. As she stepped outside, only a fine drizzle remained, and the gentle sound of raindrops tapping her umbrella played like a soft soundtrack to the warm, joyful day ahead. On a drizzly winter morning, Lily basked in the peacefulness of her bakery. She loved snowy days, especially when children laughed and built snowmen out in the street. After finishing her cup of tea, she washed it, then changed into her favorite sweater, one with a silly snowman design that she always wore for the annual cookie party. Bundled up in her warm coat, scarf, hat, and gloves, she reached for her new green umbrella with cheerful yellow polka dots, a thoughtful gift from her regular customers after her old one had broken during an autumn storm. The umbrella reminded her of the warmth and kindness the community always showed her. As she stepped outside beneath the fine drizzle, the soft patter of rain on her umbrella played like a gentle lullaby. Tilting her head upward, peeking through the colorful dots, Lily caught sight of a black cat sitting at a neighbor's window, definitely not the familiar white one. The small surprise made her smile as the day unfolded with quiet magic. On a quiet, drizzly morning, Lily stepped out with her green umbrella dotted in yellow, a gift from her kind regulars after her old one broke. Every time she used it, it reminded her of their warmth and thoughtfulness. As she walked past her neighbor's house, she spotted an unfamiliar black cat pressing its nose to the window, gazing outside. Just a moment later, she noticed the familiar white tail of the cat she always saw each morning. The two were curled up together on the windowsill like two warm, gentle halves of a circle. Smiling, Lily continued toward the bakery where her colorful front door waited to welcome her. The sky began to lighten, revealing the hand-painted hues on the bakery's door. Lily slid the key into the lock and stepped inside. She gave her umbrella a gentle shake, left it in the entryway, and wiped her feet on the welcome mat. Taking a deep breath, her small ritual of transition, she felt comforted by the warm scent of roasted coffee and a hint of caramelized sugar. A new day full of promise had begun. On a quiet, drizzly morning, Lily left home with her green umbrella dotted with yellow, a gift from her regular customers. Passing by the neighbor's house, she smiled at the sight of the familiar white cat curled up beside a new black one, a small winter friendship. As she neared the bakery, the soft gray light slowly revealed the familiar colorful door. Lily opened the door and stepped into the warm space, filled with the scent of roasted coffee and a hint of burnt sweetness from yesterday's cookies, a smell that reminded her of toasted marshmallows. She turned on the lights and plugged in the string lights above the seating area, making the shop glow like a fairy tale corner. Instead of starting with cinnamon rolls as usual, today she planned to bake a few more batches of cookies to make sure there would be enough flavors for the upcoming cookie party. Early in the morning at the bakery, Lily was getting ready for a special day. The shop was filled with the comforting scent of roasted coffee and old cookie crumbs, reminding her of toasted marshmallows. After switching on the lights and plugging in the string lights, the bakery transformed into a warm, magical space. Today, instead of starting with her usual cinnamon rolls, she would bake extra cookies for the upcoming party. She stepped into the pantry and gathered the dry ingredients for 2 batches, chocolate chip cookies and stained glass cookies. Lily prepared flour, white and brown sugar, vanilla, molasses, chocolate chips, cornstarch, salt, and a colorful bag of hard candies to create the glass centers. From the fridge, she took out eggs and baking soda. The butter, already softened on the counter, was ready to be mixed in. With everything in place, she felt inspired and excited to begin a joyful morning of baking. On a quiet, drizzly morning, Lily began her day at her little bakery. After turning on the lights, shaking off her umbrella, and taking a deep breath filled with the scent of coffee and caramelized sugar, she got to work preparing for the upcoming cookie party by baking 2 extra batches, chocolate chip and stained glass cookies. From the pantry and fridge, she gathered everything she needed: flour, sugar, molasses, chocolate chips, hard candies, eggs, butter, and baking soda. Lily measured out the ingredients for each batch, mixing the dry and wet components separately before combining them to just the right consistency. For the chocolate chip cookies, she gently folded in the chips to keep them intact, then used an ice cream scoop to portion out the dough and placed it in the oven. As for the stained glass cookies, she wrapped the dough and placed it in the fridge to firm up, making it easier to roll and shape later on. On a misty morning, Lily began her day in the warmth of her cozy little bakery. She prepared 2 batches of cookies, chocolate chip and stained glass, for the upcoming party. After mixing the ingredients, she placed the first tray of chocolate chip cookies in the oven, while the stained glass dough was wrapped and set in the fridge to chill before rolling and cutting later on. As the scent of freshly baked cookies began to fill the air, the bakery's first regular customer walked in. Seamus, right on time for his usual coffee and sweet treat. Though he usually preferred cinnamon rolls on cookie days, he always made it a point to be the first to taste Lily's new creations, just to ensure quality, as he liked to joke. Lily had already poured his coffee before he even reached the counter, sliding the warm cup toward him across the wooden surface. A quiet morning ritual that marked the beginning of another sweet, comforting day. On a drizzly morning, Lily began a special day at her cozy bakery. She was preparing 2 kinds of cookies, chocolate chip and stained glass. As the first batch baked in the oven, the familiar chime of the door announced her regular, Seamus, arriving with a warm smile and a folded newspaper under his arm. Lily had already poured his coffee. They chatted as he leaned on the counter and asked, "So what kinds do we have this year?" She replied with a grin, "Chocolate chip, classic sugar, and stained glass. Chuckling, Seamus teased, "Guess I'll have to try all three, strictly for quality control, of course." Lily laughed. "Naturally, it wouldn't be cookie day without you." When the first tray came out, golden and fragrant, Seamus took his usual seat by the window, sipping his coffee, ready to savor the very first taste of the day. On a drizzly morning, Lily began a special day at her warm little bakery. She was making chocolate chip and stained glass cookies for Cookie Day. While the first batch baked, Seamus, a dear regular, stepped in and, as always, asked to sample for quality control. Lily laughed, saying she couldn't imagine this day without him. The chocolate chip cookies came out golden and fragrant, filling the shop with a sweet warmth that reminded Lily of toasted marshmallows. A scent that makes anywhere feel like home, she thought. Seamus settled by the window with his coffee, watching the rain and waiting for the cookies to cool. Lily retrieved the sugar cookie dough from the fridge, feeling its firm chill in her hands. Placing it on the wooden table, she rolled it out with smooth, practiced motions until it reached the perfect thickness, ready to be cut into cheerful little shapes. On a light, rainy morning, Lily began a special day at her cozy little bakery. On a light, rainy morning, Lily began a special day at her cozy little bakery. She wore her snowman sweater and carried the polka-dotted umbrella, a gift from her dearest customers. On the way, she smiled at the sight of two cats, one white, one black, curled up together by a window. At the shop, she turned on the lights, plugged in the string lights, and began baking cookies for the holiday. She made chocolate chip and stained glass cookies. The first batch came out golden and fragrant, filling the space with a warm, sweet aroma. Her regular Seamus stopped by for coffee and joked that he needed to sample the cookies for quality control. Lily rolled out the sugar cookie dough and used cutters to shape squares, circles, and rectangles. Then she used smaller cutters to make bell, tree, and snowflake shapes in the center. She crushed colorful hard candies and sprinkled each color into the cutouts to create beautiful stained glass effects. For Lily, Cookie Day was a gentle kind of magic in the heart of winter. On a gentle rainy morning, Lily began a special holiday at Rainy Day Bakery. After preparing chocolate chip and sugar cookie dough, she cut the cookies into various shapes and carved festive patterns into their centers. She crushed colorful hard candies and sprinkled them into the cutouts, creating sweet little glass panes. When baked, the candy would melt into translucent stained glass framed by golden cookie dough. Once everything was ready, she slid the tray into the oven and allowed herself a few quiet moments. The rain still tapped softly outside, but daylight was beginning to push through the gray clouds. People were starting to venture out, and familiar faces began appearing at the bakery door. Among them were Rose and Gwen Spencer. Inside, the bakery was warm and welcoming, filled with the smell of fresh cookies and the cheerful murmur of morning chatter. The perfect beginning to a sweet and familiar holiday celebration. On a light, rainy morning, Lily prepared special batches of cookies for the holiday at Rainy Day Bakery. She cut the sugar cookies into festive shapes and sprinkled crushed colorful candies into the centers to create a shimmering stained glass effect once baked. After placing the tray in the oven, she took a quiet moment to relax as the first customers began to arrive. Among them was Rose, who brought along her 2-year-old twin boys. One wore glasses, the other didn't. The only way Lily could tell them apart, especially since both wore matching red sweaters, blue jeans, and fuzzy green socks. The twins loved running around the bakery, playing in the kids' corner, and greeting everyone. They also knew, without a doubt, that every visit meant a sweet treat from Lily. A thought that made her smile as she suddenly remembered there were still a few things left to prepare for the upcoming party. The atmosphere at Rainy Day Bakery grew livelier as the cookie party got underway. After greeting the early guests, including Rose and her adorable twin boys, Lily quickly returned to her preparations. Wiping her hands on her apron, she stepped into the storage room and gathered every bit of cookie decoration she could find. A rainbow of sugar sprinkles, gold and silver drudgies, red, green, and purple sanding sugars, peppermint shards, chocolate curls, and shredded coconut. She carefully arranged everything into a large basket and brought it out to the seating area, where guests and children would soon gather to decorate cookies together in a warm, joyful setting. To Lily, this was more than just a party. It was a moment to connect people through sweetness, creativity, and the simple happiness of sharing. As the cookie party entered its final stages of preparation, Lily arranged trays of decorating supplies on each table. Piping bags filled with icing, colorful gel tubes, jars of powdered sugar, and sprinkles in all shapes and sizes. From the back of the storage room, she brought out a large metal tree, originally meant for hanging ornaments, but today it would proudly display cookies decorated by the guests themselves. When the timer chimed, Lily returned to the kitchen and pulled the tray of stained glass cookies from the oven. The cookies were perfectly golden, with melted candy centers that shimmered like tiny panes of colorful glass. She smiled, pleased with the result. The bakery was now filled with sweet scents, vibrant colors, and a growing sense of excitement. The perfect beginning to a joyful winter morning. As the stained glass cookies cooled, the melted candy centers shimmered in vibrant shades of red, green, yellow, orange, and blue, like tiny windows from a fairy tale cottage. Lily gently turned the tray, admiring each cookie as if they were pieces of delicate glass jewelry. Then she brought out a tray of sugar cookies baked the day before, each cut into cheerful shapes: snowmen, Christmas trees, snowflakes, and stars. She carefully arranged each type of cookie onto large silver trays, setting one at each table so guests could choose their favorite and begin decorating. Before carrying the trays out, Lily paused for a moment. She picked one cookie from each batch and tucked them into a small cream-colored box tied with a red ribbon. It was a special little gift she had prepared, not for any particular reason, just a gentle gesture of care, the kind she always offered through the smallest details. Now everything was ready. The bakery buzzed with sweet scents, warmth, and the soft rustle of excitement. The chairs were filling up, and the sound of laughter mingled with the smell of freshly baked cookies. The cookie party had officially begun, a tender slice of winter where flavors and joy came together in every moment. After setting up the trays of cookies for guests to decorate, Lily placed a special portion on a small plate and brought it over to Seamus, the loyal regular who always got the first taste. He beamed, took a bite of the chocolate chip cookie, and exclaimed, "I think this is the best batch you've ever made. Truly perfect." It was the same thing he said every year, but it still warmed Lily's heart like the very first time. A wave of happiness rose within her, because there was nothing quite like the joy of seeing her pastries bring someone comfort and delight, whether it was a cookie, a croissant, or a cinnamon roll. For Lily, every day spent baking was a journey of love, and today's cookie party was the sweetest proof of that. Seamus's compliment lit up Lily's entire day. She returned to the counter and carried the large trays of cookies to each table, all set and ready with a variety of cookies waiting to be decorated. A quick glance at the clock told her the party was about to begin. As if on cue, the bakery door opened and the first guests stepped inside, a family who had just moved to town. They looked a little hesitant, their eyes shyly taking in the warm, cozy space, but Lily welcomed them with a gentle smile and kindly guided them to choose any table and start whenever they liked. They smiled back and settled at a spot near the door, bringing with them a mix of nervous excitement, the perfect beginning to a sweet, laughter-filled cookie celebration. Right after the first family, an elderly couple stepped into the bakery. They were in town visiting their grandchildren and made it a tradition to stop by whenever they could. They took a seat near Seamus, exchanging warm greetings before settling comfortably into the familiar space. One by one, the townspeople began to make their way to Rainy Day Bakery. From little kids to the elderly, coming alone or in groups, everyone found a place for themselves. The atmosphere in the bakery quickly became lively, filled with cheerful chatter and laughter. People gathered around the tables, now overflowing with cookies and decorations, their hands busy, but their hearts joyful. For Lily, this was the most wonderful moment of the year. A time when connection, warmth, and sweetness all came together in every single cookie. Laughter rang out, mingling with the cheerful sounds of sprinkle jars, icing tubes, and lively conversation, making Rainy Day Bakery feel more alive than ever. As Lily looked around the warm, bustling space, her heart settled into a deep sense of peace. She couldn't imagine a better place to be in that very moment. While she soaked in the cozy joy of the gathering, her gaze drifted toward the window. And there she caught sight of the first snowflakes of the season, gently falling to the ground. A little girl noticed them too, tugging excitedly at her mother's sleeve and pointing, "Look, it's snowing!" The bakery slowly quieted, the chatter softening into a hush, as everyone turned to witness the magic. In that stillness, joy, connection, and the quiet beauty of winter came together, a moment of wonder shared by all. The entire bakery fell into a hush, a shared sense of wonder settling over the room as every eye turned toward the windows. A delicate layer of snow had begun to blanket everything, from parked cars to lampposts and cobblestone paths. Lily smiled softly, wondering if the two neighbor cats were perched at their usual windowsill, watching the snowfall just like everyone inside. Maybe it was the joy of being surrounded by a familiar, close-knit community, or perhaps it was the quiet magic that only winter could bring. Lily wasn't quite sure. But in that moment, she felt a gentle pull, a tender urge to step outside and touch the first snow of the season. Carefully slipping out from behind the counter, she made her way toward the door, heart full and light, as if every good thing in the world had paused to gather in that quiet, shimmering moment. Lily gently opened the door and stepped outside, tilting her face up to the sky. She stretched out her arms and slowly spun in place, surrounded by a soft world of white. The first snowflakes of the season landed on her cheeks, her nose, the palms of her hands, and she let out a laugh, light and carefree, like a child. She stuck out her tongue to catch a snowflake, her eyes sparkling with pure joy. The world around her seemed to pause, quiet, still, wrapped in the hush of a winter morning. Lily stood there for a moment, gazing upward, silently taking in the peaceful beauty of the season's first snow. So simple, yet completely enchanting. In that moment, with soft music drifting through the door behind her and snow gently falling all around, there was a perfect sense of connection between people, nature, and the most quietly magical parts of life. Snow blanketed the world in white, bringing with it a magical stillness. In the little courtyard outside the bakery, a lone crow stepped carefully through the snow, leaving tiny black footprints. Behind. Looking down, Lily saw her own boot prints pressed into the powdery white, and she smiled with quiet joy. She waved a gentle goodbye to the snow and the crow, then turned and stepped back into the warmth of Rainy Day Bakery. Inside, the cheerful bustle had returned. Guests were joyfully decorating cookies, tiny snowmen with candy scarves, green frosted trees dotted with red and gold like Christmas ornaments, delicate snowflakes dusted with pale blue. Lily entered, carrying with her the hush of the first snowfall and a heart full of gratitude. To her, this moment felt like perfection, simple, warm, and complete. On the tables, the cookies were intricately decorated. Soft white icing borders, tiny candles with gently curved golden flames, stained glass cookies dusted with powdered sugar and hung by ribbons. The chocolate chip cookies had a few bites sneaked from their corners. Some customers had begun hanging cookies on the metal tree in the corner of the shop. Instead of ornaments, this tree held little cookies like small gifts welcoming the season. Though most customers took their cookies home, many still left one behind as a gesture of affection. The cookies would remain there until the year's end. Lily picked up a stained glass cookie, lifted it to her lips, light glinting through the shimmering sugar glaze. A sweet moment, like the winter spirit itself, held gently in her hand. Lily took a bite of the stained glass cookie, feeling the buttery crumbs melt gently on her tongue, the sweet candy center blending in perfectly. Nothing beats a freshly baked cookie, she thought. For the rest of the day, she would help her friends and customers decorate cookies in countless creative ways, maybe even treat herself to an afternoon coffee. But right now, She just wanted to stand here, soaking in the warm, festive atmosphere filling the shop. Laughter echoed, lights sparkled, sweet scents lingered. Together, they created a winter symphony. Outside the window, snow kept falling softly, like a quiet whisper of the magic in the simplest moments, where happiness wasn't far away, but right here in Lily's little bakery. The gentle sound of rain falling against the bakery's window slowly brought Lily out of sleep. She didn't open her eyes right away, but stayed still, savoring the last moments of that. Calm before the day began. That familiar, soothing sound was like a tender lullaby, making her feel at peace. No need to rush, no need to think. Just let herself sink into the quiet moment between the cozy warmth of the room and the steady rain outside. Lily slowly drifted off to sleep to the steady sound of rain, her mind filled with images of glistening streets and puddles shimmering under the lights. Gradually, the dream faded as her awareness returned to the warmth of her bedroom. She smiled and opened her eyes, grateful for those rare extra minutes of morning rest. The rain had quieted now, perhaps nearly gone. A gentle thought passed through her as she stretched, feeling her body wake up. Lily raised her arms overhead, tracing small circles with her toes to warm her ankles, then gently swung her feet out of bed. Everything moved slowly, like a soft beginning to a new day, as the rain made way for light and the rhythm of everyday life returned. After slipping her feet into her familiar house slippers, Lily slowly stepped into the kitchen, as she did every morning. She set the kettle on the stove to make a fragrant cup of tea, loving the sound of the bubbling water, a familiar, soothing sound, like a gentle soundtrack to a quiet morning. To Lily, boiling bubbles and falling rain were always things she could rely on at the start of the day, small, evocative sounds that made her feel truly at home. While waiting for the water to boil, she quietly reflected on the small yet meaningful things in daily life, the simple routines that brought warmth and a sense of belonging. As she gently spooned dried tea leaves into the pot, Lily's new day began in peace and stillness. Lily gently swirled the tea infuser over the rim of the cup, then hung it by its small chain on the edge of the ceramic mug. When the water boiled, she poured it over the tea leaves and watched the color slowly bloom, something familiar, yet always delightful each morning. The swirls of color in her cup were different every day, adding a sense of freshness to a daily ritual. To Lily, making tea wasn't just a simple act, but a meditative moment, a quiet pause in the flow of life. After adding a touch of milk, she carefully carried the warm cup to her familiar wooden table, ready to enjoy a moment of peace before the day began. These small moments were what made her feel deeply connected to her living space. Sitting by the window, Lily quietly observed the outside world while the sky was still dim. The early morning rain had softened into a light mist, and she could see thin fog curling behind the neighbor's house. The man across the street tended to his garden all through spring and summer, and even in autumn, the area around his home remained neat and harmonious. Fallen leaves in shades of brown, red, and yellow were scattered across the lawn like a spontaneous work of art. The scene brought Lily a sense of calm, a peaceful moment before she began her day, when everything out there was still wrapped in stillness and mist. Lily sat by the window, watching the quiet scene of the neighborhood still asleep in the early morning mist. She smiled, realizing she was probably the earliest riser in town, but that didn't bother her. Quiet mornings were one of her favorite parts of running the bakery. Glancing at the garden across the street, Lily noticed a small patch of freshly turned soil. He must have planted some bulbs yesterday, she guessed. And it reminded her that she, too, should start planting flowers this season. Those little things, a well-tended garden, the faint light of morning, made her feel more connected to the rhythm around her, and more excited for the day ahead. Lily had a small garden just outside the bakery, where she had tried growing many kinds of plants over the years, from herbs to tomatoes and peppers. Now she had turned it into a flower garden, though the blooms only truly came to life in spring. To stay on schedule, Lily knew she needed to plant the bulbs early this fall, while the soil was still cool enough to help them take root. Sipping the last of her tea, she gently reminded herself, "Don't forget to bring the bulbs to the shop today," then glanced outside once more before starting the day. As Lily looked out the window, she saw the fog quietly wrapping around the house across the street. She remembered the forecast had mentioned fog today and felt a sense of delight. To Lily, foggy days always carried a sense of mystery and magic, as if strange things and hidden worlds were just beyond sight. The thought made her smile. After finishing her morning tea, she brought the cup to the sink, rinsed it clean, and set it on the rack to dry. She stepped into her bedroom to get dressed, choosing a red top with bright golden details for the new day. The misty air outside and the quiet within her home gave Lily a feeling that was both gentle and inspiring. Just the right mood to begin her day at the bakery with a cheerful heart. On a misty early morning, Lily woke up to the quiet sound of gentle rain. She brewed a warm cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the still sleeping neighborhood. Her eyes paused on the neighbor's garden, where new flowers had just been planted. It reminded Lily of her own small garden in front of the bakery, once filled with herbs, now a home for flowers. She decided to bring a bag of flower bulbs to plant them today. Wearing a bright red top to stand out against the gray day, Lily tucked the bulb bag into her coat pocket, put on a hat, slipped on her gloves, and grabbed her green polka dot umbrella with the duck-shaped handle. She stepped outside, surrounded by fog, carrying with her the quiet hope of blossoms that would bloom in spring. A small but warm promise. Lily looped the yellow polka dot umbrella around her wrist, then opened the door and paused for a moment to take in the quiet street ahead. The thick fog blurred her view, letting her see just enough to spot the line between the sidewalk and the road. In her imagination, the nearby houses were still fast asleep, hidden beneath layers of soft gray mist. Lily took a deep breath, sensing how fresh and crisp the air felt after the rain. The fog and the earlier shower seemed to have washed away all worries, giving the morning a sense of renewal and ease. She smiled, feeling reinvigorated to begin a new day in the peaceful, poetic calm of autumn.